Grab your snacks and get comfortable, because this is a long one. This is the story of how my own flesh and blood tried to rip away my life's work, and how I served him a dish of revenge so cold, so meticulously prepared, that he's still choking on it today. If you asked anyone in my family, they would tell you that my older brother, Derek, was destined for greatness. If you asked me, I'd tell you Derek was destined to be a leech. I'm 31 years old, and for the last 8 years, I have bled, sweat, and cried over my catering business, Savory and Soul. I started it in a cramped, unair-conditioned studio apartment kitchen, burning my arms on cheap ovens and sleeping 3 hours a night. I hauled my own groceries on the subway, catered tiny birthday parties for pennies just to get my name out there, and slowly, agonizingly, built a roster of high-paying corporate clients. Today, Savory and Soul operates out of a state-of-the-art commercial kitchen downtown, employs a staff of 20, and handles some of the biggest tech and finance galas in the city. I earned every single dime, every single client, and every single gray hair on my head. Derek, on the other hand, is 34 and has spent his adult life riding the coattails of our parents' enabling behavior. He's the quintessential idea guy. He doesn't want to work, he wants to be a CEO. He's been a crypto bro, a life coach, an app developer for an app that already existed, and a drop shipper. Every single venture ended in spectacular failure, usually followed by a hefty bailout from our parents, who constantly made excuses for him. He just hasn't found his calling, Chloe, my mother would sigh. You're so lucky you have a simple passion like cooking. Derek's mind is just too complex. A simple passion. Right, tell that to my spreadsheets, my payroll, and my 4 a.m. alarm. The conflict began about 6 months ago. Derek announced at one of our mandatory Sunday family dinners that he had finally landed a C-suite level position. He had been hired as the Vice President of Client Acquisition for Apex Culinary Innovations. My blood ran cold when he said the name. Apex wasn't an innovation company, they were my biggest rival. They were a massive, soulless, venture capital-backed catering conglomerate known for slashing prices to drive local businesses out of the market, offering subpar, mass-produced food, and poaching clients with aggressive, borderline unethical tactics. They recognized my aggressive networking skills, Derek bragged, swirling his wine glass with an air of unearned superiority. They brought me on to completely dominate the Midwestern corporate sector. It's a 6-figure base, huge commission. I'm going to be swimming in it, Chloe. Maybe I can throw some of our overflow your way when you're struggling to keep the lights on. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. Congratulations, Derek, I forced out. Just stay away from my clients. He laughed, a sharp, condescending sound. Don't flatter yourself, sis, we go after the big fish. 2 weeks later, the impossible happened. I lost Harrison Financial. They had been my anchor client for 3 years. I catered their weekly executive luncheons, their quarterly retreats, and their massive holiday gala. They accounted for roughly 20% of my annual revenue. My liaison there, a sweet woman named Sarah, called me sounding incredibly awkward. Chloe, I'm so sorry, she mumbled. Management got an unsolicited pitch from Apex. They offered to do the exact same menu you do, but for 40% less, locking us into a 2-year contract. I tried to fight for you, but the board only sees the bottom line. I was devastated, but I assumed it was just bad luck. Apex was aggressive. It happens. But then, a week later, I lost Lumina Tech, then the Vanguard Group. In the span of a month, 3 of my most lucrative, fiercely loyal clients abruptly canceled their contracts, all citing sudden, incredibly aggressive, highly specific pitches from Apex Culinary Innovations. Pitches that perfectly matched the menus, pricing tiers, and event schedules I had custom-built for them. Panic set in. I was looking at a devastating financial quarter. I had to lay off 2 of my prep cooks, which broke my heart. I couldn't understand how Apex knew exactly when these companies were reviewing their budgets, or exactly what my price points were. The realization hit me during the next Sunday family dinner. I was exhausted, practically falling asleep into my mashed potatoes. I had left my phone, unlocked, as I was waiting for a crucial text from an event planner, on the kitchen island while I went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. When I walked back into the hallway, I paused. From my vantage point, I had a clear reflection in the hallway mirror of the kitchen. Derek was standing over the island. He was holding my phone. He wasn't just glancing at it. His thumb was flying across the screen, furiously scrolling. In his other hand, he held his own phone, and he was snapping photos of my screen. Flash off, completely silent. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The world seemed to slow down. The missing clients, the exact price matches, the aggressive poaching. It wasn't Apex doing market research. It was Derek. My own brother was stealing my proprietary client database, my pricing structures, and my direct contact lists right out from under my nose, week after week, using our family dinners as his personal espionage playground. He was trying to bankrupt me to prove his worth to his new bosses. A wave of nausea washed over me, followed immediately by a white-hot, blinding rage. I wanted to storm in there, grab the phone, and scream until my lungs gave out. I wanted to show my parents exactly what their complex golden boy was doing, but I stopped. If I confronted him now, what would happen? He would deny it. He'd say he was just looking at my photos. My parents would defend him. He wouldn't do that, Chloe. Don't be so dramatic. Apex already had the data they needed for my top clients. The damage was done. A screaming match wouldn't get my clients back. No. A simple confrontation wasn't going to cut it. He was trying to ruin my life, my business, and my employees' livelihoods. He thought I was just his dumb, apron-wearing little sister. I backed away silently, walked to the front door, opened and closed it loudly, and called out, "Hugh, bathroom fan is loud." By the time I walked back into the kitchen, my phone was sitting exactly where I left it, and Derek was casually sipping a beer by the fridge. "Everything good?" he asked, smirking. "Never better," I smiled back. The smile didn't reach my eyes. That night, the trap was born. If Derek wanted to steal my client list, I was going to give him the mother of all client lists. I was going to hand him a ticking time bomb disguised as a golden ticket, and I was going to watch him detonate it inside his own career. I spent the next 3 nights wide awake, fueled by espresso and sheer, unadulterated spite. I didn't just invent a fake client, I birthed an entire corporate mythology. I created a fake venture capital firm called OmniCorp Global Dynamics. I bought the domain name. I built a sleek, corporate jargon-filled website using a premium template. I created fake LinkedIn profiles for their board of directors using AI-generated faces. I set up a dedicated phone line with an automated professional directory. Then, I created the ultimate prize, the master client dossier. I created a hidden folder on my phone titled Confidential Expansion 2027. Inside was a beautifully formatted, password-unprotected PDF detailing my secret negotiations with OmniCorp. According to the dossier, OmniCorp was planning a massive, 3-day global synergies summit for 300 ultra-high-net-worth investors. The catering budget was listed at a staggering $450,000. It was the kind of whale that would make an Apex VP's career. It was irresistible, but I didn't just make it lucrative, I made it a living nightmare. I detailed the absurd, contradictory, and borderline impossible demands of OmniCorp's eccentric billionaire CEO, Maximilian Sterling. Here is a taste of the dietary restrictions and demands I put in the dossier for Mr. Sterling and his inner circle. The shadow allergy. Mr. Sterling believed that vegetables grown in the shade developed toxic negative energies. He required certified proof that all produce was grown in 100% direct sunlight. The temperature mandate. All hot food for the executive table had to be served at exactly 142.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Not 142, not 143. If a thermal probe showed a variance, the entire dish was to be thrown out. The illegal demand, the trapdoor. This was my masterpiece. I added a highly confidential memo stating that Mr. Sterling demanded a very specific, incredibly rare delicacy for the climax of the final dinner. Ortolan bunting. Ortolan is a tiny songbird that is notoriously, strictly illegal to hunt, sell, or consume in almost every country, especially the US. The dossier explicitly stated, "Client is aware of the legal restrictions regarding ortolan. Caterer must assure discreet sourcing and preparation. Budget is unlimited for this item. Failure to provide will result in immediate termination of the contract. To make it even more chaotic, I added that 50 of the guests were level 5 breatharians who only consumed infused mists and required elaborate dry ice vaping stations instead of actual food. Another 20 guests were allergic to water that hadn't been filtered through rose quartz. It was utterly unhinged. It was the most absurd, ridiculous list of catering demands ever compiled in human history. But wrapped in corporate letterhead and tied to a $500,000 budget, I knew greed would blind them to the insanity. I seeded the document on my phone. I left the app open in the background. Sunday dinner arrived. I walked into my parents' house playing the part of the stressed, overwhelmed business owner perfectly. I looked disheveled. I complained about being overworked. Just landing this new contract is killing me, I sighed, rubbing my temples at the dinner table. If I pull this off, I can retire at 40. It's the biggest whale I've ever seen. But the NDA is ironclad and the demands are intense. Derek's ears practically twitched. He leaned in, trying to look casual. Oh yeah, big tech company. I can't say, I whispered dramatically. But it's life-changing money. I just have to finish reviewing their dossier tonight. After dessert, I set my trap. I left my phone on the coffee table, screen glowing, open to the first page of the OmniCorp dossier, clearly showing the $450,000 budget. Mom, can you help me find that old recipe box in the attic? I asked. Of course, honey, she said. We went upstairs. We were gone for exactly 12 minutes. When I came back down, my phone was shifted slightly to the left. I smiled. The bait was taken. The hook was set. Now I had to solidify the illusion. I knew Apex would reach out to OmniCorp, so I hired professionals. I reached out to a local, highly rated improv theater troupe. I offered them $2,000 to participate in an immersive corporate training exercise. I cast the director of the troupe, a brilliant, imposing older man named Arthur, as the eccentric CEO, Maximilian Sterling. I cast a stern, sharp-witted woman named Brenda as his ruthless chief of staff. I briefed them entirely. I gave them the dossier. I told them their job was to be the most demanding, impossible, terrifying corporate clients in existence. 3 days later, the OmniCorp dedicated phone line rang. It forwarded straight to Brenda, who was sitting in my living room. I listened on speakerphone as Derek's slick, practiced voice came through. Good afternoon. This is Derek, Vice President of Client Acquisition at Apex Culinary Innovations. We are the premier catering conglomerate in the tri-state area. I'm reaching out because we heard whispers of your upcoming Global Synergies Summit, and we believe our massive infrastructure can handle your unique needs far better than any small, boutique caterer. Brenda didn't miss a beat. She was icy. How did you hear about the summit? That information is strictly confidential. Derek stumbled, clearly lying. We have our ear to the ground in elite circles, ma'am. We specialize in discreet, high-level requests. Fascinating, Brenda purred. We were in talks with a local vendor, Savory and Soul, but we have concerns about their capacity to handle Mr. Sterling's precise requirements, specifically regarding the avian delicacy. The ortolan, Derek said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Ma'am, Apex has global sourcing channels. We can acquire anything. And we can do it for 20% less than whatever Savory and Soul quoted you. I had to bite a pillow to keep from screaming with laughter. He was actually going to try to source an illegal, endangered songbird. Very well, Brenda said. We demand a tasting and an infrastructure stress test. Next Friday, Mr. Sterling expects a flawless execution of his preliminary menu, and he expects to see the sourcing paperwork for the final course. Do not disappoint us. The next week was a blur of chaotic joy. I rented an abandoned, slightly decrepit warehouse on the edge of town for a few $100. We brought in cheap folding tables and dressed them up with ostentatious black velvet tablecloths. Arthur, playing CEO Sterling, arrived wearing a silk kimono and dark sunglasses, carrying a small, hairless cat we borrowed from my neighbor. He looked completely unhinged. Friday arrived. The Apex team pulled up in 3 massive, branded box trucks. Derek stepped out, looking like he owned the world, flanked by a stressed-looking executive chef and a team of frantic servers. He was wearing a custom suit, grinning ear to ear. He thought he had just stolen my golden goose. I was parked 2 blocks away, watching the entire thing unfold through a live feed from a hidden GoPro Brenda was wearing on her lapel. The disaster began almost immediately. The apex chef presented the first course. Arthur Sterling tasted it, spat it into a napkin, and screamed, "This arugula has clearly known the darkness. I can taste the shade. Are you trying to poison my aura?" Derek rushed forward, sweating. "Mr. Sterling, I assure you, it's organic." "Take it away," Arthur bellowed, stroking the hairless cat furiously. "Bring me the infused mists. My breatharians are starving." The Apex team had actually tried to create infused mists. They brought out a chaotic array of dry ice buckets and essential oils. Within minutes, the warehouse filled with a blinding, choking fog of eucalyptus and lavender. The servers were coughing. Derek was waving his arms, trying to clear the air. Then came the temperature check. Brenda whipped out a laser thermometer and pointed it at the main course, a mass-produced, rubbery filet mignon. 138 degrees, Brenda announced coldly. "Unacceptable." "It's resting," the chef pleaded, looking like he was about to cry. "Throw it in the trash," Brenda commanded. "All of it, 200 portions, now." Watching Derek's face as his team literally shoveled thousands of dollars of premium beef into garbage bags was a level of euphoria I didn't know existed. The panic in his eyes was visceral. He was watching his massive commission and his reputation disintegrate in a cloud of eucalyptus vapor. But the grand finale was approaching. "The main event," Arthur purred, leaning forward, taking off his sunglasses. "The ortolan, tell me you have secured the prize, Derek." Derek swallowed hard. On the hidden camera feed, I could see the sweat dripping down his forehead. He signaled to the chef, who brought out a covered silver cloche with trembling hands. "Mr. Sterling," Derek said, his voice cracking slightly. "Due to the sensitive nature of the item, we couldn't bring the actual bird for the tasting. But we have secured a black market supplier in France. We have a substitute bird today to demonstrate the preparation." The chef lifted the cloche. Sitting on a plate was a single roasted quail. Arthur stood up, knocking his chair over. "A quail?" he roared, his voice echoing off the warehouse walls. "You bring me a peasant's game bird and promise me illegal smuggling on the day of the event? You admit to engaging in black market international wildlife smuggling on my behalf, yet you fail to deliver the product." Derek panicked. No, we can get it, we have the connections." Right on cue, the warehouse doors slammed open. Enter my friend Marcus, a towering guy who works as a bouncer, wearing a cheap windbreaker with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, stenciled on the back in bold yellow letters, accompanied by 2 other agents, more improv actors. "Nobody move," Marcus boomed, flashing a realistic-looking prop badge. "We received an anonymous tip regarding the conspiracy to import and consume protected species under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. The absolute chaos that erupted is burned into my memory forever." The Apex executive chef threw his tongs in the air and literally ran out the back door. The servers scattered. Derek froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He raised his hands in surrender. I'm just the VP of acquisition. I don't source the food. It was my company, Apex Culinary Innovations. They made me do it." He was selling out his own company instantly to save his own skin. Marcus marched up to Derek. "We have you on recording conspiring to purchase ortolan. We are confiscating all equipment and vehicles as evidence of an ongoing smuggling operation. Do you understand?" "Take it," Derek shrieked, practically crying. "Take the trucks, just don't arrest me." Arthur and Brenda seamlessly slipped out a side door during the commotion, leaving Derek alone in a smoke-filled, empty warehouse, surrounded by fake federal agents, abandoned by his staff, having just thrown away thousands of dollars of food and surrendered 3 commercial trucks. Marcus confiscated the keys to the box trucks, told Derek he would be contacted by the federal prosecutor, and ordered him to leave the premises on foot. Through the GoPro, I watched my arrogant, thieving brother trudge out of the warehouse industrial park, his expensive suit smelling of lavender and despair, trying to call an Uber on a dead battery. We didn't actually steal the trucks, of course. Once Derek was gone, I had Marcus call the Apex corporate office anonymously, telling them where their abandoned vehicles were. But the damage to Derek was nuclear. By Monday morning, the fallout was apocalyptic. The Apex chef, who had fled the scene, went straight to the CEO of Apex and reported that Derek had dragged them into an illegal federal wildlife smuggling sting operation that resulted in the confiscation of their fleet. Derek was fired immediately. Not just fired, but terminated for gross misconduct and reckless endangerment of corporate assets. But it got better. Apex investigated how Derek found this client. They dug into his computer and found the stolen files from Savory and Soul. Realizing that their new VP had not only engaged in corporate espionage, but had then monumentally botched a fake contract that cost them thousands in wasted food and massive embarrassment, Apex decided to make an example of him. They slapped Derek with a massive lawsuit for breach of contract, reputational damage, and misappropriation of company resources. 2 weeks later, the family was summoned to an emergency Sunday dinner. I arrived perfectly on time, carrying a beautiful, flawlessly baked triple berry tart. The atmosphere in my parents' house was funereal. My mother was weeping into a tissue. My father looked gray. Derek was sitting on the couch, looking utterly destroyed. He had stress hives on his neck and his eyes were bloodshot. "What's going on?" I asked innocently, setting the tart on the dining table. "Is everyone okay?" My mother looked up tear-streaked. "Oh, Chloe, it's a disaster. Derek lost his job, and he's being sued. They're saying terrible things about him." "Sued," I feigned shock, "by Apex. But he was going to dominate the Midwestern sector. What happened?" Derek wouldn't look at me, he stared at his shoes. "It was a setup," he mumbled, his voice raspy. "Some fake company, Omnicorp, they tricked me. And the feds showed up, it was a nightmare." I walked slowly into the living room and stood directly over him. I let the silence stretch for 5, 10, 15 agonizing seconds. "Omnicorp," I said, my voice dropping the innocent act entirely. It was cold. It was hard. Derek finally looked up, and I saw the exact moment the realization hit him. He saw the ice in my eyes. He remembered the phone on the coffee table. He remembered my confidential dossier. All the color drained from his already pale face. He looked like he was going to be sick right there on the rug. "You," he whispered, horrified. "Me," I confirmed softly so only he could hear. "What are you two talking about?" my father demanded, stepping forward. I turned to my parents. "Derek got fired because he tried to steal a client from my phone. A client that didn't exist. I noticed him taking photos of my private business database a month ago. He stole 3 of my biggest accounts, costing me thousands of dollars and forcing me to lay off 2 loyal employees. So, I left a fake document on my phone for him to steal. I created a fake company with impossible, illegal demands. And your brilliant, complex son walked right into the trap, tried to illegally procure an endangered species to impress a fake billionaire, and got himself fired and sued by his own company." The silence in the room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. "Derek," my mother gasped, turning to him, "is this true? Did you steal from your sister?" Derek couldn't form words, he just stammered, his bravado entirely shattered. It wasn't fair. She has everything, I just wanted a piece, it was just business." "It was theft," I snapped, my voice finally rising, years of pent-up resentment pouring out. "It was sabotage. You tried to destroy my livelihood because you're too lazy to